in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight the cry rang out, "Here is the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish one said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, "there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the others also came. "Lord, Lord," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "Truly, I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour." Sorry, Paul. You just grabbed my attention. Is it important?
So it wasn't very kind.
Wasn't very kind. Of the fire.
Well, what was the oil? What's the oil mean in this? Good question. What is the oil? It's our internal preparation, isn't it? The oil is our internal preparation. But when I remember this Bible quote, then I also remember this song that was written by True Father. True Father has written some incredible holy songs, which I often sing at home almost every day with my little ukulele. I sing these holy songs. Anyway, this is a song that's called "Suffering Heart." And these are just two verses from that. That song has 7 verses in it. Just these two. Verse 4 goes, "To defeat the power of death, fighting the realm of sin, I sought the Lord, longing for him, bridegroom of my soul. Tortured my heart, suffering alone, fighting deepest pain. Finally today I greet the Lord, gaining all comfort from him. Oh, my dearest heavenly bride, now you've come home at last. Deserts you've crossed, searching for me, climbing the rocky peaks. You persevered, faithful to me, longing for this day. How you've become lovely to see through all your suffering and pain." But this song expresses that the difficulty in difficulty to find the Messiah, to meet the Messiah, and through our struggle, somehow we become lovely to see. This is our struggle to become Christ-like. It's a powerful image, isn't it? Crossing deserts and climbing rocky peaks. Just imagine, like a movie, someone going to find their bridegroom, going across the desert, dry, no water, struggling day after day, or climbing rocky peaks in the cold and cutting your hands on the rock and struggling to get to the top. But these are not actual deserts, are they? It's not an actual desert you're crossing. It's not actual rocky peaks. So a dry prayer life could be like a desert, and overcoming temptation could be climbing rocky peaks. Even once you have found the Messiah, even once you have found the bridegroom of your soul, are you ready to meet him? To use another analogy, what are you going to wear on your wedding day? Do you feel lovely to see? Will your lamp be full of oil? The human history is this history of searching for the bridegroom of my soul. It's a quote from True Father, Blessing Our Ideal Family, page 100. The history of 6,000 years was a history in search of what? It was a history in search of one man. What was it for, which countless ancestors sought from the time of Adam's family until now, paying the price of sacrifices? In other words, what was the suffering for? What were they seeking? They were seeking one man, who is Adam. So human history has been this search. For 4,000 years, biblical years, we searched to the time of Jesus, but we couldn't recognize him. We missed our chance. We've been searching for another 2,000 years for the Lord's return. So how have we been searching? We've been making conditions, we've been preparing our hearts. What preparation and conditions are required for you to be able to meet the Messiah? Are you destined to meet the Messiah? What do you think? Are you destined? Yes, you're destined. Are the people out there that are destined to meet the Messiah that haven't met the Messiah yet? But yes, again. What do we mean by destiny anyway? Fate? Fated. Fated. What does that mean? You can keep saying, what does it mean? Until you start to struggle. Anyway, in Korean they use a word, inyon. Who's heard this word inyon before? Oh, in Japanese it's inen. Inen. In Chinese it's... I've asked every Chinese, I haven't met any Koreans, but every Chinese and Japanese person I've met, I've asked, do you know inyon? What does it mean to you? Several online dictionaries translate this as karma, but it's not karma. Karma is something else. Karma is influenced by my actions directly. Karma is based on what we do. It's another of those words which is difficult to translate into English. But I found a Japanese dictionary which gave 4 definitions. The first was fate or destiny. The second was connection, bond, origin. Third was justification. And fourth was the original concept, which is originally a Buddhist concept. And I'll come to that in a second. But because I've been talking about inyon, Chizuko was reading the Japanese translation of the Chansung-gyeong on Friday and Saturday. And she said, oh, I found inyon. Father using the word inyon, these Chinese characters. And so we got out the English translation and we looked at that passage, and the passage was translated into English as ties, or the second meaning up here, connection, bond, ties. But I know for sure that Father has used this 4th meaning of the original sort of Buddhist concept of direct cause, that's in, and yon, indirect cause, the conditions that make an outcome possible. So it gets a bit technical, but bear with me. It's important. So together, they give a spiritual explanation as to why certain beings can meet in certain places and certain times. So we have to, because when I spoke to Japanese people, it's not really a word they use so much today. I spoke to a couple of Chinese, and they said, or Malaysian, and they said, well, yes, we do use this word quite a lot. So, what are the spiritual conditions by which people are brought together? Supposing God wants you to meet King Charles and tell him about the unification movement. What conditions are required for that, make that outcome possible? So, time, place, opportunity, what's required for you to meet with King Charles? You might say, well, with God, anything is possible. Yeah, true, but certain things can make it more likely to happen. For example, if you were the Prime Minister, you meet with King Charles once a week in a private. So all you've got to do, become Prime Minister, and then you can meet King Charles. You might join King Charles's family. There was that rugby player, Mike Tyndall. He married Princess Anne's daughter. So there he is. I saw him on the balcony at the palace, looking out over the Mall. So he can meet with King Charles. Just get married to somebody. You could be just lucky. Is is Hildegard here. Is Hildegard here? No, Hildegard I can't remember what the book was. Hildegard put a book through the car with
Passing my house.
Father's autobiography for Queen Elizabeth. It was just passing her street or something, and she shoved the book through the window. Great. So, spiritually, what were the spiritual conditions to make this happen? So, let's look a bit more into this. I found an academic paper describing Inyon, what the Koreans think of Inyon, and this paper was called Emotions in Korean Philosophy and Religion. And they first, as always, you always have to talk about Jung when you're talking about Koreans. So that's the first thing. So this Jung is the Jung that you get in Shinjung or Hyojung, which we use all the time now. What does Jung mean? It says here, Jung, or warm-heartedness, they translate it, creates a community of we, or we-ness, or us-ness. It creates this sense of community, this warm feeling of unity. And of course, the basic model for learning Jung is the family. So our hearts are infused with Jung when you're being held by your mother as a baby. You're held by your mother as a baby, and you learn this warm-hearted, this Jung. And as you grow, you want that Jung expands, and you want it to embrace all people. And ultimately, a society. So Jung brings us together, it unites us, it makes us want to unite. So that song that we sing, Tonggil, our cherished hopes are for unity, will give our lives for unity. How do you feel when you sing that song? Sometimes, perhaps not always, there are some incredible evenings, you have a beautiful family night, you feel very close to everybody, and you sing this song, and you just think, wow, I wish the whole world could feel this. I wish the whole world could feel this sense of unity, this sense of heart, this sense of belonging together. So that's Jung. And apparently, if you want to understand Koreans, you've got to understand Jung. It goes on to say, Inyon establishes a sense of we-ness, or this sense of community, prior to Jung. It has been used to explain the patterns of existence in all beings. In refers to direct cause, and yon to indirect cause, like I said before, the conditions of the cause. And he gives an example here of an apple tree. Apple trees originally come from a seed, that's the cause, but also because of other conditions, such as sunlight, oil, water, and so on. So everything exists, or disappears, because of its cause and conditions. So that's Inyon. Inyon can give a comprehensible answer to why certain beings meet in certain places and times. In Korean culture, the concept of Inyon and the related term karma have slightly twisted meanings and connote a destined relationship. So Inyon could be used to explain the relationship given by heaven which exists before Jung. Not only does Jung form we-ness, but Inyon also forms communities of we-ness, families, which you can't choose your own family, in which Jung is activated. So Inyon then genders this sense of destiny, even divine providence in our relationships. So has God been working in your family? Did God want your parents to meet? Possibly. Likely, I would say. How important is lineage in God's providence? Really important. Extremely important. Did God bring you and your husband or wife together?
Yes.
Is it easier to find God if you're born to a loving family or a dysfunctional one? Loving family, obviously. It's incredible that this plant can survive and grow, but what are its chances of long-term survival? Probably pretty slim, but maybe not. So this is trying to get across the idea of this, of what inyon is. It's this divine impetus, cause for things to happen, plus the environment in which it comes about. Inyon is also, obviously, it also has lots of folklore attached to it. And if you watch K-dramas, I don't, but I know somebody that does, inyon comes across in these K-dramas, not just K-dramas, Japanese know this as well. So it is an inyon, it is one inyon, if two people even accidentally meet and their clothes brush. You're walking down the road and your clothes accidentally touch someone else. That's an inyon. It means that something must have brought them together from an earlier life, from a past life. If two people get married, they say, it's because they have 8,000 layers of inyon over 8,000 lifetimes. And this is called the red thread of fate. Apart from the Asians in the room, who's heard of the red thread of fate? I mean, all the Asians have heard of it. I said to Yasu, have you heard of the red thread of fate? Oh yes, he says. Do you know it in the West? I said, no, we've never heard of it. Oh, he said, he was surprised we didn't know the red thread of fate. The red thread of fate, when you're destined to marry somebody, a red thread is tied around your finger, little finger, and around the little finger of the person you're destined to marry. Different cultures say different things. Sometimes it's the man's thumb and the woman's little finger. Sometimes it's their ankles. And this red thread can't break. It can stretch, it can get tangled. But it has to be looked after. It has to be nurtured, taken care of. So each contact that you make over this 8,000 lifetimes, you have to make sure it's a good contact. You have to treat the other person well, but you don't know which person it is. You maybe just meet somebody, a shopkeeper, and then in a future life, you'll be married to that person. So you better treat them nicely now. In other words, you have to treat everybody nicely. Of course, we don't believe in reincarnation. But why do people believe in reincarnation? One reason is because life just seems so unfair, doesn't it? That you can't accomplish what your heart desires in one lifetime. Can't I meet the person, my soulmate, in one lifetime? No, you can't. You've got to wait 8,000 lifetimes of inyon before you can meet the right person. It does seem unfair. But it's something that we want. It's something that our heart wants. Our heart wants to have this incredible, this is the person for me. Father said in a speech called The Joining of Heaven, Earth and Man, the fact that one woman met a man, and likewise man met a woman, is not just a small happening. It is a universal happening. You have to understand that concept. It is the most important one. The concept of free sex is so destructive and dark. You must fight every inch of the way and become victorious. Become a victor. That is the way each man and woman must go. Think about it. All men, since the time of their conception, absorbed all the core elements of manhood, or the masculine part of the universe. Likewise, women absorb the feminine part of the universe. Such a perfected man and woman would join together. When they are joined together, God pulls the string of these two, and all the elements of the universe are connected to them. Think about that. You must understand, they didn't just meet. He had to survive up to that level. And she had to survive up to that level, victoriously. Then they could meet. It is inyon, the result of cause and effect in a universal degree. not just a small happening. So I wonder if Father was thinking of this red thread of destiny when he said God pulls the string of these two. So, thousands of years ago, God destined that a perfect man and a perfect woman would meet. But because of the fall, it's taken thousands of years to make the right conditions, and even then, they had to be victorious. In popular culture, Inyon is often thought of in terms of meeting my soulmate. But Inyon is also about meeting the Messiah too, meeting the bridegroom of my soul. This is a talk that was reprinted in Today's World by Reverend Quark. He said, "I will start with Father's very recent speech on June the 2nd. You have Inyon of thousands and millions of generations to meet with true parents. You, by yourself, do not have a one-to-one Inyon with true parents." So I couldn't find the speech that Reverend Quark was talking about there. But I do remember this time, suddenly everyone in our church, in America, I can't remember, where was I, in 92? I was here. Anyway, I do remember a time when everyone was talking about Inyon, but it kind of seemed to die out. It's always there in the back of my mind, this concept of Inyon. And that Inyon was a ratio. Reverend Quark talks about it as being a ratio of Inyon. So, like meeting the king, do you have enough Inyon to meet with the king? You need a lot of good conditions to get to that point. So a lot of direct and indirect spiritual causes. What this means is that we can benefit from the Inyon of others. We can benefit from that. So I can, you can go to a meeting that I could never arrange that meeting myself, but I'm lucky enough to be able to get in the door, and that is where, the Messiah is speaking, something like that. You can benefit from other people. The sacrifice of others before us, in the past, and people around us today. So a little bit of a recap. We are destined to meet the Messiah. But when? Inyon is the result of cause and effect to a universal degree expressed as a ratio. You have to build up an house of it. We can benefit from the Inyon of others. We can work together to make the right conditions. And we can build the temple. Do you remember this sermon was going to be about building the temple? So that this is still here. We managed to keep a little bit of it in. So is there anything more important than meeting the bridegroom of my soul? What is the temple for? Do you remember? The purpose of the temple is to make the condition to meet the Messiah. We can practice attending the Messiah by attending the temple. It's a condition to grow. It helps you recognize him when you meet him. It lets others benefit. So what do we mean by the temple? Coming to Sunday service. When you come to Sunday service, you're creating an atmosphere where it becomes possible to make that connection between you and the Messiah, to touch, to feel something, to change, to grow. All of these things are improving my chances of making that connection, making the necessary conditions. So this is the last slide. I'm not going to read this out again. This is that suffering heart. That song talks about even meeting the Messiah and running away from him. I wouldn't listen to it. Then you struggle to make that connection. Why did Father use this analogy of bridegroom of my soul? We talk about fairy tale marriages because our hearts long for that, even if our mind cynically rejects it. Imagine that you deeply love someone that you've lost? What efforts would you go through to get to them, to find them again? Someone recently said to me, I don't know if she's here. No. A guest of mine said that she goes, every now and then she goes to a certain service and she just cries and cries and cries. She said, well, why is that happening? The reason is that you've touched the Messiah. You've made that connection. Deep in our hearts, we long to be with God. And the bridegroom makes that connection. We taste divine love that we're born to be surrounded by. And then reality can set in and we stop believing what our heart is telling us. But we're destined to meet the Messiah and eventually to believe that he really loves us. So let's pray. Our beloved Heavenly Parent, we have searched throughout history to find you, to find the one that could show us how to connect to you. The bridegroom of our soul is such a deep concept. We have to look deeply into those words to find that desire to overcome any obstacle in making that connection. But not just for ourselves, for the sake of those around us and those that follow on. We have to create the spiritual conditions. You set the course. You destined that we would meet. But it requires all sorts of other conditions to make the environment for that to happen, for that to take place. Please help us to understand how we can accomplish this in our daily life. I will put this down in the name of Nigel, bless Central Family.
Thank you. Thank you, Nigel, for that sermon. Let's express our gratitude for that. Let's have a round of applause, please. Thank you. So now please stand and we'll have our offering song.